guillotines, cultural revolutions, it's always about we are getting together as a mob and we're taking action on you, on a small group or one person. The mathematical consequences and reality of that is eventually you go on the guillotine too. That's one of the mathematical features, mathematical certainties of bringing out the guillotines is you go on the guillotine eventually too if you bring the guillotines out. That's what people don't appreciate, that the aggression becomes distributed and unregulated, and revenge and envy just continue to boil. It's an awful thing, and we have to push back on it fast before it really takes hold.
Times like this are hard to wrap your head around.
I don't find this hard to wrap my head around. I find it hard to know where it's going. That's the scary part to me. I understand what's going on. I get it. I feel bad for some of the people who are even doing some of the destructive things, but I worry about where it's going. And so to me, the best I can do is to raise awareness and to push back hard. We have to contain this. The oddest thing of all for me is the fact that it seems to be at least almost a worldwide phenomenon. It's really a Western phenomenon, that's for sure. And how everybody got here all at once, that part I do have trouble getting my head around. But if you look at history, look at the mid-19th century, there was tremendous numbers of different kinds of uprising. They sort of went under the heading of strikes that ended in some revolutionary activity, Russia, China. So it does seem to, when it comes, sweep across the world.
Where does social media factor into the equation?
Social media is the ingredient, is the sort of unpredicted ingredient for me. I didn't know when I was sort of watching these things happen, I'd never heard of a social media. It didn't exist yet. And so it has become the town square, right? It has become the environment in which mobs do their thing. They're dangerous. People are getting hurt. And these mobs on social media feel totally justified in destroying people's livelihoods, their families, their lives. People need to think about what they're doing on social media before they act out on somebody else. It's okay to have an opinion, but to continue to act as a mob until somebody is harmed, that is disgusting. That is not caring. That is not being a good person. You know, in cities throughout Europe, they actually, if you notice how small the streets are and small the squares are, that came later. That was a way to try to control mobs. And we need to, somehow make the virality of what's going on in social media somehow contained a little bit so it doesn't run amok so much. One of my grave concerns these days is speech and social media and its effect on free speech. Alexis de Tocqueville wrote a book in the 1820s called Democracy in America. He's a French aristocrat that came here under the guise of studying the penitentiary system. Really, he was here to look at democracy, this new thing. And many brilliant observations that sustain to the present day. But one was that it was the local practice of democracy that made it work. In school, in classrooms, in cities, in townships, people participated in democracy. That was a necessary ingredient. But he looked around at our free speech laws and said, you guys have the most extraordinary, the most complete protection of free speech ever conceived in the law, and yet you don't have free speech. This was his observation. He called it the effect of the town square. He said, if you go up in a township and say something really unpopular that everybody has a problem with, you're not going to be allowed to keep saying that. The social fabric will start to come, forget the law, the government, so the people will start to contain your speech. Here we are again, where social media is doing exactly that. I'm sure you knew Greg Lukianoff about the fact that there has to be a culture of free speech, or the culture of suppression of speech very quickly bleeds into the law. The law is just the expression of the cultural phenomenon. We need to protect the culture of free speech and be sure that the laws continue to maintain that protection.
Are you a free speech absolutist?
I really am. I'm a free speech absolutist. I am. I don't like it. It doesn't appeal to me that people say things that are awful, but I would protect their right to do so. And some of the things I've been seeing people say lately that I don't want them to say, I'd like to suppress their speech. I'm not going to. I'm kind of glad to see who they are, what they're up to. I see you now. I get who you are. Okay. All right. Good luck.
Is social media a net positive or a net negative?
I always feel like technological advances are always ultimately a net positive. The problem is, in the meantime, tremendous problems can be the result. I just constantly look at the printing press. To me, the printing press is the ultimate example of extremely important advancement in technology that was a net positive that for 200 years, be pretty hard to call it positive. It's hard to see it.
Should we ban all social media for kids under the age of 16?
I think banning social media completely for people under the age of 16 is just not realistic. I can't even imagine how we would do that without being a totalitarian government. I don't see how we could do that. However, we need to raise awareness in parents that they must limit access to screens. I really do believe we will look at screens in 10 years the way we look at tobacco now, that we allowed kids unrestricted access to this will be like, you got to be kidding. It's too dangerous, too harmful. Friends of mine that really study this, psychologists that work with kids and screens, limit their kids to 1 to 2 hours a day, period. That's it. And even, with all the whining and God knows what else they're exposed to from their peers, 2 hours a day is those kids are significantly healthier.
If you like this clip, it is part of a much longer conversation that is only available at dadsavesamerica.com. So head on over there and subscribe. It's our Substack where you can get that and so much more. It's a great way to also keep track of everything we're doing here at Dad Saves America.